Welcome to Revenge Justice, where every wrong finds its payback. Tuck in your seatbelt. This one's long. Breathe. Slow. Let the pauses sit, like weight, like quiet, before a storm. We'd just had our second child. We'd just moved into a duplex in a neighborhood that looked like a postcard, a playground across the way, neat lawns, families pushing strollers, a place you imagined would smell like cinnamon in the fall and have porch lights on in winter. For about an hour, it felt that way. My wife carried the baby in and hummed. I wrestled boxes into the right rooms. The older kid ran in small circles, discovering closet space. We knocked on doors, introduced ourselves. People smiled. People waved. People looked like neighbors, the kind you trust to borrow a cup of sugar from. And then, day 2, the first crack. We came home from an errand, and someone had left their 7-year-old boy standing on our doorstep, a paper bag of goldfish crackers in his hand, a handwritten note tucked under his arm. "Can you watch him? We'll be right back." It was a school day. My wife looked at me. I looked at the kid. I looked at the note. The neighborhood that smelled like cinnamon started to smell like burnt toast. We called CPS. That was call number 1. They arrived. They took the kid, and the explanation was thin like tissue paper. We had an emergency. We had to run. The excuse fell apart under questions. The kid didn't look cared for. Not like the other kids in the playground. He was dirt-smudged, underfed, the wrong shoes for the weather. I felt sick. The old man next door, the one who fixed bikes like he was fixing the world, he nodded to us later and said under his breath, "You didn't get the worst of it." The woodworker from 2 doors down brought his grandkids over for a play date and gave us a look that said, "We'll keep an eye." They warned us about the upstairs apartment. Trouble, they called it. Noise? Traffies. He's scary folks. At first, we treated it like small-town gossip. Then the nights came. Music thumped at midnight. Doors slammed at 2 in the morning. Laughter bled into arguments, into fights, into a sound that made the walls vibrate. People came and went like a revolving door. Different faces every night. At first, it was inconvenient. Then it became impossible. The baby wouldn't sleep. Our toddler learned to cover his ears. We complained. We called the landlord. The landlord listened with the kind of patience someone uses when they don't plan to do anything. "We'll talk to them," he said. "We'll handle it." Weeks passed. Nothing changed. And so, we learned to record. Quiet videos, notes with dates, pictures of cars, names we overheard, patterns, a trail, the kind of evidence patience starts to hoard when rules are ignored. Then came the night the red Mazda 3 rolled up like it owned the block. It hit something. Hard. Metal to metal. A sound that made my chest tighten. The car pulled into the driveway. Worse than a dented Pride. Smashed glass, crumpled bumper, a headlight like a bleeding eye. They stepped out laughing, or pretending to laugh, because in their world, consequences were optional. I called the sheriff because someone was hit, or someone might have been, or because damage done to city property leaves a paper trail. I thought, at the very least, they'd get paperwork, maybe a ticket, maybe a stern visit. I did not know the rest of the story. I did not know the small domino that this single call would tip over. The guy, the one we later called the douchebag, had a warrant. A real warrant. For drug trafficking. Not a small misdemeanor. Serious stuff. The sheriff pulled up in lights and cuffs. They read him his rights right there in the driveway. They walked him to the patrol car. He didn't have the entitlement to charm them away. His girlfriend, the woman we eventually tagged in our heads as Entitled Woman 1, she had a son. She left him home alone, repeatedly. She got visited by CPS, again. Not once, not twice, every single day. The line between irresponsible and criminal started to blur. But the story doesn't stop there. My wife. She's sharp in ways I'll forever be grateful for. When you live small town, social media stitches the map of names and places together. She found the mother of the red Mazda cousin on Facebook, and then she pulled names from public records. She started tracing debt notices, eviction papers, and the kind of bureaucratic breadcrumb that says, They left town and took the furniture. We discovered they owed Easy Home nearly $48,000. $48,000 for furniture and electronics they'd walked away from. TVs, dressers, a sound system so loud it felt intended to vibrate our skulls. They packed their car, left their lease, and vanished like bad weather. The sheriff knocked again, this time with a box truck behind him. $48,000 in repossession is a spectacle. They pulled beds from the house, couches, the monster subwoofer that shook the floor, a kitchen set, dressers, axes, all the little things that make a place livable, gone. CPS stepped in. They took the child. I still remember that. The sight of him sitting in a worn shirt, his shoulders small and pale, the shrunken look of a kid who'd been asking for care and found only absence. We'd fed him when we could. We gave him meals that tasted of normalcy, mac and cheese in a bowl, a clean set of pajamas, a toothbrush that didn't rattle. I'm not a saint. I'm a parent who knows the sound of a child's stomach when it's empty. You don't look away. The kicker, the coup de grace, came when they found drugs stashed in a dresser, drugs the douchebag had hidden. He was out on bail. The stash was discovered during the clearing out. They were arrested for possession. The girlfriend, Entitled Woman 1, assaulted a sheriff and got herself booked. It was a spectacle I never wanted to watch, but watch I did. And then there was Entitled Woman 2. She's a person I had mixed feelings about. She'd been a neighbor in name only. She'd run with the same crowd, but after losing her son, after CPS took him, something changed. She vanished, and then she came back. Different. I walked a tightrope of emotions through it all. Satisfaction flitted by. Yes, a sense of justice settled in my chest like a stone. Relief was the strongest. Relief that the child was safe. Relief that the menacing music and the nightly parade of strangers were gone. But I also felt that hollow thing that comes when you see a human being fall and you know you had a hand in the shove. People said I got revenge. Fine, call it that. Maybe I did. I called the sheriff. I filed the complaints. I documented. I reported. I pushed. I used every channel the law and the neighborhood gave me to clear the poison from our block. I didn't enjoy watching possessions be removed. I didn't take joy in that chest of stolen days leaving on a truck. But sometimes restoration requires removal. Sometimes healing is the broken thing being hauled away. The aftermath was messy. The douchebag went to jail. Entitled Woman 1 had a stint in county lockup. The boy, taken. For weeks, I kept my kids close. I watched the playground with a hawk's eyes. I slept less. I replayed every night they'd been noisy and imagined a child in the middle of it, hungry, sleepy, overlooked. I fed the kid when he was home. We couldn't do much. We weren't CPS. But we could buy a new set of clothes, a blanket. We brought him hot dinners. We put a little cash into his school's fund for supplies. I know people judge neighbors who meddle. But what does a person do when their next-door life is being quietly dismantled by neglect? What do you do when a small voice asks for help and the adult response is silence, years later? I saw Entitled Woman 2 again, the one who lost her son. She had cleaned up. She'd gone through programs. She'd worked. She'd shown up to the hard stuff. She said thank you. She cried. She meant it. Seeing her then, a reordered life, made the mess feel less like vengeance and more like an intervention that saved at least one person from falling forever. People like simple endings. They want a neat headline. Good neighbors fight back. Hero saves boy. The truth isn't neat. The truth is small things stacked. Calls to CPS, a knocked-on door with a sheriff's flashlight, a repo truck groaning on the curb, a mother who has to decide between feeding herself or feeding her kid, and sometimes a neighbor who decides he won't look away. The neighborhood healed. The playground filled again. The old man with bike grease on his hands smiled and handed us a repaired chain. The woodworker sent over fresh-cut toys for our kids. The duplex stopped vibrating at night. We slept. We lived. Did I get pro-revenge? Maybe that's a phrase people slap on it when they like the drama. Did I enjoy the spectacle? No, but I did feel useful. I felt Lee. Key, I had drawn a line. Said, not here, not in my house, not around my children. I don't recommend violence. I don't celebrate the judicial scars. I don't crave the sound of handcuffs. I tell you what happened, plain and unvarnished. In the raw dawn after it all, I learned a few things I won't pretend I invented. 1. Neighbors are more than mailboxes and smiles. They are a network of small human tendrils. When one person fails, others feel it. When that failure is a child left on a doorstep, it becomes everyone's problem. 2. Documentation matters. If you hear music at 3 in the morning and see a different person walking into the apartment every night, write it down. Take a photo of the car. A pattern is easy to dismiss until it's not. Evidence changes noise into cause. 3. The law can be slow. It can be bureaucratic, but it also moves. It will act if enough people make the noise into a signal. Call, report, keep records. Push. Don't expect a single phone call to fix it. Expect a process. 4. Mercy can come later. People get a chance to change. Entitled Woman 2 did. She turned her life into a second chance. She showed up into programs and work, and later, thanks. That complicated the picture. It softened it. It made me less proud and more relieved. 5. Sometimes the only moral choice is to protect your own. There's a fine line between meddling and caring. For me, when a neighborhood becomes a danger to its smallest members, caring is not meddling. It's duty. And so, if you're reading this, if you're on the fence about whether to report the noise, the nightly cars, the forgotten child at your door, do it. Document it. Call CPS. Call the sheriff. Alert the landlord. Keep pushing. Because the quiet accumulation of entitled behavior, of unchecked chaos, will one day become a catastrophe if no one stands up, if no one marks the day and says, enough. If you like this story, May, and you want more real-life drama, more neighborhood justice, more lessons learned the hard way, then, hey, like this video. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell. Share it with someone who needs the reminder that small choices matter. And if you live in a duplex, listen to your neighbors. Sometimes they speak when you don't. Sometimes they save a life.